Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott. You know him as B. Scott. Well, race week is finally here for the NTT IndyCar Series. And on today's podcast, we got a little bit of something different. We kind of did this, or we did do this with the NFL. We did our tier list predictions at the beginning of the year. We're going to do the same thing with IndyCar. We're going to rank every driver on our IndyCar tier list based on how we think they're going to do this year. We're also going to give our storylines and predictions for the upcoming season, including who we think will win the series title in 2024. So, B. Scott, it's finally here, beginning of March. We always get super excited because IndyCar season is here again.
I know, it's great time of year. I'm very excited that it's back. Hoping for some really exciting races, lots of changes to the schedule. And, you know, I am super pumped about all of this and can't wait. All begins Sunday at noon.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got after a season where Alex Palou was so dominant, there actually are a lot of like good storylines going into the year because you think like, oh well, as tough as he was and how wide a margin he won the title by last year, you think like, oh well, who's to say he's not going to just run away with it again? But yeah, there's a lot of good storylines, a lot of good, a lot of not championship contenders necessarily, but a lot of good storylines to follow through the course of the year.
Yeah, and let's just go ahead and dive right on into them.
So we got some notable driver changes. First and foremost, we've got Marcus Ericsson. He jumps from Chip Ganassi to drive the number 28 for Andretti Autosport. You've got David Malukas, who leaves Dale Coyne to join Arrow McLaren, driving the number 6. Of course, he got injured a few weeks ago, so Callum Ilott will actually pilot the 6th through the first race and maybe beyond. We're not sure when he'll be back. But at least for the first race, Callum Ilott is going to be driving for David Malukas. Felix Rosenqvist switches from Arrow McLaren to pilot the number 60 for Meyer Shank, and Romain Grosjean is now with Juncos Hollinger Racing. We've got some. I'm really excited about this rookie race this year because we've got 2 drivers for Chip Ganassi Racing. We've got Kiffin Simpson for Chip Ganassi, and we've got Linus Lundqvist also for Chip Ganassi. We've also got Tom Blomqvist, who is a rookie for Meyer Shank Racing.
But Tom Blomqvist is no rookie compared to these other guys. This is a guy that is a big-time endurance car winner, especially for Meyer Shank. So this is he's going to be one to watch.
So you think he's going to get in the mix a little bit, challenge some of those guys for rookie of the year?
I do. He is this is a guy that has won and contended for multiple Daytona 24 hours. He's won that Rolex before. He is a very good race car driver.
And you mentioned the schedule changes, B. Scott. We're going to see IndyCar go to the Thermal Club for the $1 million challenge. That's added to the schedule. That'll be the second date on the calendar, March 24th. The Milwaukee Mile returns, doubleheader on the second to last weekend of the season. And then the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is now at the Nashville Superspeedway due to construction on the new Tennessee Titan Stadium, interfering with the street course. So
you got another oval.
Yeah, we got Nashville coming back, which pretty excited for that one. Because we've seen when they've we've seen them on a lot of short tracks or those kind of flatter tracks, but to see them back on like a bigger track like that is going to be really fun because we've been talking about like the Kansases of the world or when they used to go to Chicagoland. So I know those tracks aren't exactly like Nashville, but maybe Kentucky's more of a good comparison. But yeah, to go to a track that isn't necessarily one of those like kind of hairpin short tracks is going to be really fun to watch. So really excited that track is back on the schedule. So yeah, and I mean, I did like the Nashville street course, but I am glad that Nashville Superspeedway is back. So that is where the season is going to end, and I'm glad that they decided to not like move where the last race of the year was going to be too. Like they didn't because I think that's going to be still a great atmosphere. We talked about it with NASCAR about like, oh, party atmosphere. They should move to Vegas, so that's that way it'll be kind of a party in the year. That's how it's going to be. at Nashville to wrap things up. So glad that that's still the way that it is. I thought it would be a fun exercise as we get ready to preview the IndyCar season. I thought it would be fun to do an IndyCar tier list where we're going to put every IndyCar driver into the following tiers, and we have to, just like we've done with tier lists in the past, we have to come to a consensus. So we've got Alex Palou. 10 guesses who's going to be in that tier. We've got we've got championship contenders. We've got Joseph Newgarden. We've got race winners. We've got sneaky podiums. We've got average, and we've got traffic. I couldn't think of a better word to call it that. I kind of feel bad naming it that. It seems a little harsh, but those are some of the drivers that I don't think are really going to be super competitive. So getting going right away, let's go ahead and knock out kind of the easiest tier to file somebody into, and that's Alex Palou. I thought it would be funny to give Alex Palou a tier all of his own because he's earned it. I mean, with the season that he had a year ago, and now he's won 2 of the last 3 IndyCar championships. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Last season, he had 5 wins, 10 podiums. He had a 5-race stretch where he won the Indy GP and then won 3 straight at Detroit, Road America, and Mid-Ohio. In 2021, he had 3 wins and 8 podiums. So in those 2 championship seasons, he's got 8 wins and 18 podiums. He also won both titles by a combined 116 points, which is a 58-point average. So the 2 years that he's won the title, he's been incredibly dominant, and I thought that was worth a tier all its own.
Yeah, consensus. We Alex Palou is on a level all to himself, until proven otherwise. You know, he is right now the most dominant driver, and I think week in, week out, it doesn't matter if it's an oval or if it's a road course. I mean, maybe less so on an oval, but road course, street course, Alex Palou is going to be right there battling till the very end.
Yeah, so he is at the top of the tier list. The next tier is our championship contenders, and it's not a super long list. It's pretty much the people you'd expect. We've got Scott Dixon in there, because I mean, come on, 6-time IndyCar champion, won 4 between 2013 and 2020, with 2020 being his most recent title. He finished 3rd in points in 2022, second a year ago. He actually made it interesting down the stretch last year because it looked like Palou was just going to run away with things. And so the fact that it's at least, I mean, I guess, Palou still wrapped it up, at the second to last race of the year, but the fact that Dixon still made it, somewhat of a push was still pretty exciting. So Scott Dixon, obviously, in that championship contender tier.
Yeah, I agree with Scott Dixon being there. He's the Iceman for a reason. He's, I mean, the ageless wonder. I mean, it's not really a championship chase without Scott Dixon. So keep him there for me. I'm good with that one.
Another driver I have in that tier is Joseph Newgarden. Since 2017, when Newgarden moved to Penske, these are his points finishes. 1st in 2017, 5th in 2018, 1st in 2019, 2nd every year from 2020 to 2022. He was 5th last year. We know how dominant he is on ovals, and 6 of the final 8 races are on ovals. So I could see him running off a stretch of wins to close out the year if he's in the mix in points. Like he has been, that might get him to title number 3. So I could see him having a similar stretch to what we saw Palou have, where he ran off 4 wins in 5 races, just because of his oval dominance. So Joseph Newgarden obviously deserves to be in that tier as well.
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee is a doubleheader. Is Iowa still a doubleheader?
Yeah,
believes. Yep. So there. I mean, we all know his dominance at Iowa. That's. I mean, the fact that there's been more ovals added to the schedule only helps Joseph Newgarden in his quest to win another championship. So yeah, I'm all for Joseph Newgarden being in the championship contenders. Moving on.
Now the last driver I have in championship contenders, and B Scott, I think this is where we're gonna have a little bit of a discussion, I've got Kyle Kirkwood in here. He got his first IndyCar wins a year ago. He finished 11th in points. He had finished 24th with AJ Foyt in his rookie year. He's not too far removed from that impressive 10-win Indy Lights championship, and I think he's a dark horse candidate. When Alexander Rossi came to Arrow McLaren, we talked about the competition within the team that would fuel each driver, and I think that's going to be the case with Andretti Global, because you bring in a guy like Marcus Ericsson, you've already got Colton Herta, you've got a pretty good young nucleus who are, all these guys are super competitive, and that's only going to drive these guys to compete even harder. So I think Kyle Kirkwood is going to potentially be in the mix for the title this year.
I see where you're going here with, at least with Andretti. I think Andretti's going to be improved this year. I think a lot of last year, there was a lot of focus maybe being pulled away from IndyCar, not intentionally, but, they were working on their bid to get into Formula One. And I think now that that's kind of been put to bed for a while, I could see Andretti getting back to being competitive. But I wouldn't put Kyle Kirkwood here in the championship contenders. If you want to put him down one more tier in the winners category, I think that's totally fine. Honestly, I would move him out, and I'm putting Scott McLaughlin in here. Look, he has proven year over year he's getting more comfortable, whether it be, ovals, road courses. He didn't win as many races last year, but he's just becoming more consistent. He has improved on his points finishings. I think he's ready to take that next step. So I'm putting Scott McLaughlin in here with championship contenders this year. But if I had to put a tier of championship contenders, he is at the bottom, with Scott Dixon and Joseph Newgarden being neck and neck up there at the top of championship contenders.
I'm looking up to see where McLaughlin has finished the last few years in points. Because I just feel like, I know that, I wouldn't be surprised if he was in the mix. He's got, I had him, I personally, spoiler, had him in the race winner tier just because he is good for at least a win a season. But, looking at what he's been able to do in IndyCar, let's see what his finishes are. He's, he finished third last year in points. He was fourth, 14th his rookie year. So, he's been in the mix. I don't know. I just don't think, you talked about being a little bit more consistent. He had a few podiums last year. He had one win. The year before, he had 3 wins. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready. I haven't seen. He's a little like, he's better than Marcus Ericsson, but he's a little bit like Marcus Ericsson for me, where I just don't see that extra step. I don't see him taking that extra step like he needs to. So I don't.
Are you ready to move Kyle Kirkwood up there?
Yeah, because I think there's going to be, I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of competition in that Andretti Global garage this year. That team's going to be fired up to win. I know. I
don't know. Out of all the drivers in that stable, you're looking at Kyle Kirkwood as their championship contender. When they've got Colton Herta sitting there, they've got Marcus Ericsson, who's an Indy 500 winner, probably should have been a 2-time Indy 500 winner right now.
And again, I haven't seen it from Marcus Ericsson. Colton Herta, he's the most consistent driver for Andretti Global last season, but he finished 10th in points. He hasn't been in the mix.
Kyle Kirkwood finished 11th.
Right, but he made a big leap from 24th to 11th. It's not like he's been consistently 11th every year. But yeah. I am willing to move. I'm willing to move McLaughlin.
You're willing to move him down just to the winners and just have the championship contenders be Scott Dixon and Joseph Newgarden?
I am willing to move McLaughlin up because he did finish 3rd and 4th in points. I am willing to. Looking at his numbers, like I said, 3 wins, 7 podiums, 1 win a couple of years ago, 1 win, 4 podiums last year. He is always near the front. So yeah, I'll throw McLaughlin up there. But yeah, I think
I'll keep Kirkwood there.
Okay,
so just as a dark horse contender.
Okay, so we're adding McLaughlin and we're keeping Kirkwood in the championship contenders.
Yeah.
Okay, so our Yeah, compromise. So our championship contenders are Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, and Kyle Kirkwood. So, I mean, I like that.
I
I
mean,
like that.
obviously, in that conversation is definitely gonna, is Alex Palou, but
Right, right. He's in his
because
own
we
tier
have
on
his
his
own tier,
right.
it makes things a little bit different.
So moving on to race winners now. First one I have on here is Marcus Ericsson. Ericsson has won a race in each of the last, in each of the last couple of seasons. So no reason to think he won't at least. I think it's the last 3 seasons that he's got to win. So no reason to think he won't at least be able to win one this season, especially because we saw the 2018 qualify solidly near the front last year. So I think that I think he'll be able to put that car, towards the front in qualifying and be up in the mix to get wins. So I think Marcus Ericsson is going to be a race winner this year.
Oh yeah, I agree. Marcus Ericsson will definitely be a race winner this year, so I'm keeping him in that category as well. I mean, look what he's done the last 2 years at Indy, and we all know Andretti has speed um, at Indy as well. So I'm definitely willing to keep him in that at the top of that category.
Now, here's where I think we might disagree. I don't know if we will agree or not, but I've got Romain Grosjean in this tier. I think he finally gets his first race win. I'm willing to move him out, but Grosjean with Dale Coyne, he had 3 podiums, 4 top fives. Through his entire 2-year run with Andretti, he had 3 podiums and 5 top fives. So, like who knows? Maybe it was the pressure of driving for a more competitive team like Andretti, but he showed glimpses last season early, and I think being back under the radar might be what Grosjean, like maybe he's one of those guys that needs to kind of have the pressure off to be competitive. So I think Grosjean finally gets it done, finally gets his first win in IndyCar.
See, I'm not ready to put him there yet. I still think he's a podium guy, and with him not having the same caliber of equipment that he had last year with Andretti. That is what concerns me the most. Yes, he was making the moves to potentially get there, but then there, I mean, it was just like there was races like, yeah, this is the race that he finally comes home with the win, and then struggled. So I think with, I hate to say lesser equipment, but let's be honest, it is. It's not the same caliber as Andretti with at Juncos. Um, so I'm will I would put him down in the sneaky podiums. And honestly, in this place or up into this category, I would put Pato O'Ward.
Okay, yeah, we're telegraphing a little bit what we've got here, but yeah, I've got Pato O'Ward in the sneaky podiums. And like I said, or like I put here on the notes, I mean, there's nothing sneaky about Pato being on the podium, but I just didn't know where to put him. That's why I had him down. I don't know if I like him to contend for the championship. He's only finished in the top 3 in points one time. That was 2021. And as far as putting him in the race winner category, he's a Joseph Newgarden crash at Iowa away from not having a win since Barber of May 2022. Because it was, Newgarden was on his way to win the second of the Iowa doubleheaders, and then he had a part failure and crashed, and that was how O'Ward got the win. He did score 7 podiums for those second place finishes, so I'm open to moving him up. So I did say I was open to moving those 2 guys, so I'm okay with moving O'Ward up. I just wasn't sure when I was making this list. I wasn't entirely sure where to put him.
Yeah, I would put him up in the race winners because he's fully capable of winning a race. I think last year McLaren just kind of seemed to struggle as a whole. Like you and I were talking before we started recording this, even looking at Drive to Survive, it seemed like they were having struggles all throughout, through their Formula One team as well. So I'm yeah, I think Pato O'Ward finds himself atop the podium at least once this year.
Another driver that I had in the race winner category was Colton Herta. Last year was actually the first season where he did not have a win, but I think he gets back to form at least once this season. He was the most consistent driver, like I mentioned earlier, for Andretti Global, so I think he's going to find himself with a win again this year.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I wouldn't, don't sleep on him at the the Grand Prix and Indy in early May. He's got, I mean, he runs very well on that track at that time of year. So I agree. He is in the race winners category.
Now, I've also got Christian Lundgaard here. 2023 was a much improved year for Lundgaard. He got his first IndyCar win, jumped from a 14th place finish in points in 2022 to an 8th place finish in points. So you had 4 top 5s, 9 top 10s. So Lundgaard had a great season last year, and I think he'll have at least one win this year.
Yep, I totally agree on that one as well. That is a driver that I think in the near future he could be contending for a championship.
And then the last driver I had in the race winner tier was Will Power. He's only got one win the last 2 years in the series. Doesn't even run there anymore. That's the old Belle Isle course at Detroit. But I'll put him here solely because of his dominance on the IMS road course. So he'll be a favorite to win there again, no doubt. I know he's not as dominant as he was before when he was winning pretty much every single race there. But he's still a threat to win there every single time they line him up there.
Yeah, I agree. Keep him in there. Right on the cusp of sneaky podium, but I think he'll find his way back to the top.
So our winners that we have for this year, we have Will Power, we've got Christian Lundgaard, we have Colton Herta, we have Pato O'Ward, and we've got Marcus Ericsson as our race winners, which means we move Romain Grosjean down to the sneaky podiums. Joining him there is Santino Ferrucci, and I actually hate this because I really wanted to put Ferrucci in the race winner tier, but I was trying not to let myself get swept away with how great of a May he had. And he was average outside of that. All things considered, his only other full season was 2019, so I think he makes a step forward and raises a few eyebrows. So I think he's got the capability to be up front a few times. I just wasn't ready to pull the trigger and say he was going to be a winner this year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's making the right steps. He is an aggressive driver, but I just need to see more consistency outside of the month of May. So I'm good with them at the sneaky podiums.
Next driver I have here is Linus Lundqvist. He is the 2022 Indy Lights champion driving for Ganassi, so I think there are some good runs in store for him. So I think he's got a chance to get the podium at least once or twice this year.
Yeah, I have no reason to argue against that. I could see it happening.
I also have David Malukas in this tier. Another driver that I wanted to put in the race winner category. He showed some flashes at Dale Coyne, and I think he can take the next step with Arrow McLaren. But with all the hype around McLaren last season, they went winless last year, so I'm not super confident about them getting a win. So I've got Malukas in this tier.
Yeah, I would bump him down in this tier, closer to the bottom. I'm keeping him in this tier, but because of the unknown with his injury,
yeah,
I gotta put him just on the cusp of being pushed back to traffic.
Yeah, or average would be the next tier.
Average, okay, yeah, average.
I've also got his Arrow McLaren teammate there too. I've got Alexander Rossi in the sneaky podiums. Again, another driver that like is not going to be
needs a turnaround,
right? Him on the podium isn't going to surprise anyone. Sure, Rossi has just one win in the last 4 years, but he also has 10 podiums over that span, 5 in 2020. So while the average is four per season over the last 4 years, the number is a little skewed. Nevertheless, he has at least one podium a year over the course of his IndyCar career. So while it's not exactly sneaky, I think he does at least get one more. So I think Alexander Rossi's got some good runs in him. Again, just not someone I want to necessarily pull the trigger and say they're going to win a race.
Yeah, I agree. I'd keep him there. He's a driver that just needs to see something go his way. Not like that he had bad equipment or any failures or anything like that. I don't know if there's something like in his head. I honestly thought that last win that he got with Andretti at Indy on the road course, I thought that was going to kind of flip the script for him. I even said it last year in this show. I said that win will propel him into this season, this new season with Arrow McLaren, and it'll be momentum and he'll be up there contending.
Right. I
I
mean,
was
we.
wrong. But that was the case across the board for Arrow McLaren last year. So hopefully it it changes and they're back to being competitive again. Honestly, I think the month of May will be huge for that team.
Yeah, I remember us talking about the fact that like if he had gone into last season with a new team, like still having this long winless streak, I think that was gonna be way worse. The fact that he got that win was really good, but yeah, just didn't do anything with it last year, like we were hoping he would. Final driver I have in the sneaky podium tier is Kiffin Simpson. His 10th place finish at Indy Lights points does scare me a bit. He might belong in the average tier, but it also feels wrong to have faith in one Ganassi rookie and not the other. So I'm putting Kiffin Simpson in the sneaky podiums tier.
I actually have him down in the average tier, and I have Tom Bloomquist up here in the sneaky podiums. Like I said, he is a proven race winner against some of the best in the world, competing with and against IndyCar drivers. Um, I just, he knows how to he can handle.
I
Uh, I think he's going to surprise some people. And plus, besides, it seems like every year there's at least one race where a Meyer Shank car comes out of nowhere and is sneaks into the podium or into victory lane. I mean, am I wrong on
yeah.
that assessment?
Yeah, no, I think you're on it. I will you're more locked into the to that side of things where he's coming from, like the Rolex and the endurance
I do
racing and
watch
stuff
a
like.
lot of the
Right.
Rolex
So you're more locked in than I
race,
am.
probably too much.
So I will concede to you on that. The only reason I just didn't have a lot of faith was you know, just because Meyer Shank just hasn't been the greatest team over the last few years.
They've also had aging drivers the
That's
last few
true.
years.
It's been Pagano and Castroneves and not
Yeah.
younger drivers, which is fair. Because I wrote here in the notes, I was like, you had 2021 when vibes were high. Elio wins his fourth Indy 500. Jack Harvey finishes 13th in points with a few top fives of his own and finishes 13th in points. But since then, one podium, zero top fives, and the highest either car has finished in points is 15th. So not a whole lot of success, but you are right. They have had drivers that are on their way out, closer to exiting the sport than they were actually entering the sport.
And mind you, Tom Bloomquist has also worked with Elio and Simon on the endurance side of things. So he's got some good people in his corner. Let's say he's got some good people that he's been able to watch and learn from as far as IndyCar goes. So I think that pays off, and I think he is a sneaky podium driver this year.
Like I said, I'll trust you on that one. So we got Tom Bloomquist in the sneaky podiums. He joined Santino Ferrucci, Linus Lundqvist, David Malukas, Alexander Rossi, and then I'm good with moving Kiffin Simpson down into the average tier, just because
Okay.
I was like, two Ganassi rookies. I got to be kind of fair to both of them because they'll both be good. And then I saw where he was in Indy Lights, and I was like, I don't know that I'm as confident anymore. So joining Kiffin Simpson in the average tier, I've got Marcus Armstrong. He was your 2023 Rookie of the Year. He ran a road and street course only schedule last year. He had 5 top 10s out of 12 races. Finished 20th in points. It's odd to have a Ganassi driver this low. Now we have 2, I guess. But with now more of an oval schedule, and the fact that that 7th at Toronto was his highest finish. Everything else was 8th or worse. There's just nothing for me to say that he's going to break out this season. I think he's going to struggle in his first oval season. And I just don't think he's going to be up towards the pack or front of the pack contending. So I think Marcus Armstrong is going to have another middle of the road season.
Yeah, I agree. And I wouldn't feel bad about putting 2 Ganassi drivers down or multiple Ganassi drivers down there. Wait, he's not. Where is he now? He's not Ganassi.
Marcus Armstrong?
Yeah.
I thought he is.
So they're running
5 cars.
5 cars. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I wouldn't feel bad about that because in the past, when Ganassi has run several cars, when you look at them, like a couple of years ago, you had Alex Palou, Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Jimmy Johnson.
Right, Jimmy
And
Johnson was not was not
well,
good.
same thing with Tony Kanaan. He
Yeah,
wasn't exactly
right in the
lighting it up
mix.
either. So it is kind of, it was that top tier of Ganassi, and then the guys that were filling out the roster that could essentially help their teammates
Right.
up at the top. I think that gives me okay feeling of putting them further down because of Alex Palou and Scott Dixon being all the way up at the top.
I've also in the average tier have Pietro Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi. We've got a small sample size, 9 IndyCar races in his career, 5 coming in 2018. But I mean, he has a top 10 in there, driving for Dale Coyne in 2018. Such a topsy-turvy year for Ray Letterman last year. But I also feel disrespectful calling a Fittipaldi traffic. So we'll have Pietro Fittipaldi up there.
Yeah, I'll go with you on that one.
I've also got Graham Rahal in the average tier. I want to say Graham has a podium or two in him this season, but he's got just 2 since 2021 and hasn't won since 2017. So I think he's set for another middle of the pack year.
Yeah, I'm okay with Graham, considering the struggles that they had getting into the 500. Yeah, keep him there.
I've also got Christian Rasmussen in this tier for Dale Coyne Racing last year, the 2024 Rookie of the Year candidate. Won 5 races, was on the podium 8 times, and finished top 5 11 times. That was an Indy Lights. So I think he'll be solid. I don't think he'll be great, but I think he'll run okay.
Yeah, and there's always a track or two that all of a sudden a Dale Coyne car shows up, and it's like, oh, they've got some speed this week. So yeah, I'm good with that one.
And then the final driver I have in the average tier is Rinus VeeKay. Just 2 top 10s and arguably his worst IndyCar season to date last year, and he's never finished higher than 12th in points. So I think Rinus VeeKay will be another middle of the pack driver.
I actually have him down in traffic. I just don't think Ed Carpenter Racing is putting the necessary resources into it anymore. Or they just don't have the resources to do it anymore. Um, so I actually have Rinus VeeKay down in traffic, and I have Felix Rosenquist up in average.
I'm not seeing it with Rosenquist, just because like I forgot that he had a run with Ganassi too. So he's driven for he drove for 2 of the top teams in the sport. And didn't really do a whole lot with it. His first 5 seasons in IndyCar, he drove for Ganassi and the Arrow McLaren. In that time, he has just 1 win, 6 podiums. Outside of his rookie season, when he finished 6th in points, he hasn't finished higher than 8th in points. And now he's with Meyer Shank. He's not with that superior equipment anymore. And I think he's going to continue to struggle. So actually, I don't think Rosenquist is in for a good year.
Okay, I mean I'll go with that.
Yeah, and I'm good moving. Who do we have? Rinus VeeKay. I'm good moving him down here too because I have Ed Carpenter down here as well. So might as well get the whole gang down here. Because I hate to say it about our boy Ed Carpenter. I love me some Ed Carpenter, but he just hasn't been competitive on his own oval only diet. 0 top 10s in the last 2 seasons.
I hate to say it, but he needs to stop driving. I think they need to go down to 1 car, to be honest. Go down to 1 car for a while and focus in on getting back to being competitive. There's just too much, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. Like they've even lost their speed and their ability to be competitive at Indy. And it's like, well, what happened there? Where did that go?
Right.
I feel like Ed doesn't drive the same tenacity that he used to. He's very hesitant out there, which, that happens. It's fine. But I think it's time for him to step away from being behind the wheel and focusing on getting the equipment better and getting the team back to being competitive.
I forgot we didn't recap the average tier. I've got Kyffin Simpson, Marcus Armstrong, Pietro Fittipaldi, Graham Rahal, Christian Rasmussen. But yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I mean, he's a last podium for Carpenter was 2019. So like they've, I remember we would talk about them as being like dark horses to potentially win the 500. and they haven't even been near that capability these last few
It was
years.
weird because VK used to have awesome speed there, and then all of a sudden it was just like the bottom fell out, and it was
Mhm.
just like what happened? Like, did they not keep up with the changes or something? I just don't know what happened there, and it's really hard to figure out.
Right.
Like, they went from being one of the faster teams to absolutely struggling in Indy.
I've also got Augustine Canapino down here in traffic. 3 12th place finishes are the closest he got to the top 10 last year. Average finish was 20th. So I don't think he'll have a very good year. So yeah, I've got Augustine Canapino down there.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
And then finally, Stingray Rob. It's unfortunate that the guy with the best name in the series can't find more success, but he finished outside the top 20 in 12 of 17 races last season. I don't see that changing much. So Stingray Rob is in the traffic tier as well, unfortunately.
Yep, unfortunately.
So we've got in the traffic tier, we've got Renus VK, we've got Augustine Canapino, we've got Ed Carpenter, we've got Stingray Rob, and we've got Felix Rosenquist. So there it is. That's our IndyCar tier list. And we'll kind of revisit this when we talk about when we talk about the championship race at the end of the year. We'll come back and see where we were right, where we were wrong. I look forward to looking at that. But let's finally get into our 2024 IndyCar season preview. Let's start things off with a storyline to watch. And I mentioned it a little bit already. I think this is going to be an exciting race for Rookie of the Year. I took a little bit of a different angle with it. I know, I wasn't aware of Bloomquist's success in endurance racing, so that kind of adds another layer to it if he can also be successful and be in the mix for the Rookie of the Year. But last year, Marcus Armstrong won Rookie of the Year, finishing 20th in points and ran only a straight and road course schedule. Christian Lundgaard won it the year before, finishing 14th in points, scoring just 2 top 5 finishes and 1 podium. Scott McLaughlin won it the year before that, also finishing 14th with 2 top 5s and 1 podium. He finished 1 spot ahead of Romain Grosjean, who was also rookie that year. So that might be the best rookie of the year race in recent memory. Grosjean also was not running a full schedule that year either, and had more podiums. But I'm really excited to see the two drivers, Kiffin Simpson and Linus Lundqvist, from Chip Ganassi, who are on the same team, arguably the best in the sport, battling it out for Rookie of the Year. In 2019, we saw Felix Rosenquist win Rookie of the Year, finishing 6th in points with a pair of podiums and 6 top 5s. Colton Herta, also a rookie, was right behind him and won a pair of races. And I think we can see a Rookie of the Year race similar to that this season, where both Rookie of the Year candidates are actually up near the front, contending for podiums and wins.
Yeah, the storyline I'm really looking at, it to me, it comes down to the championship contend, like who's going to bring home the championship. I know that's a cop out, but from what we have seen over the last couple of years with Alex Palou and just his pure dominance, is he able to keep that up? Or does it just become monotonous to him and he might slip up somewhere? I don't think that's going to happen. What I'm really looking at is who has something to contend, who has the ability to get up there and keep the championship close and potentially steal it. I think with the addition of more ovals that we mentioned earlier, I do think that does help Joseph Newgarden keep things a little bit tighter, if not take it home. But it is, I think I want to see if he can continue that level of dominance that he has here recently.
Well, I was going to get into it a little bit more when we did our championship predictions, but like, it's weird. The odd number years for Alex Palou have been kind of, I don't want to say duds, but they haven't been as dominant as his even number championship seasons. He's raced 4 seasons, but he wasn't really a factor in years 1 and 3. So he hasn't been able to put 2 years back to back, which, I mean, it's hard to do. We're not knocking him because of that. It's just, it's tough to do that. So can he actually do that? Can he put 2 years of dominance? It's also, I mean, it's hard to win back-to-back championships. We haven't seen a driver do that since Dario in the mid 2000s. So It's really tough to do that. So I mean, if he can manage to do it, I mean, if there's one driver who can do it, it's him. But yeah, I don't think he's a slam dunk by any means, just because he hasn't been able to put together those two dominant seasons in a row.
Right. And
Uh,
also, I think one of those years we were also looking at, um, there was a lot of that contract talk. Like, is he leaving Ganassi? Is he what's he gonna do? Blah blah blah. And I think that may have caused a little bit of distraction. Now that that talk is behind us, can that dominance continue, or does somebody, um, are they able to step up and keep things competitive? Whether that's Joseph Newgarden, Scott Dixon, or whoever.
As far as what we're looking forward to on the season, the driver change that I'm looking forward to the most, I'm going with Marcus Ericsson to Andretti Global. I've talked already how I think adding Ericsson to the mix will ignite some internal competition between Kyle Kirkwood and Colton Herta. But I also think that the number 28 team also has something to prove this season. Ericsson finished sixth in points the last 3 seasons, but let's focus on the last 2 years. In 2022, Ericsson had an Indy 500 win in the bag to add to his 3 podiums and 4 top 5 finishes in the first 8 races, 1 top 5 finish the rest of the way. Last year, he won St. Pete, and in the first 6 races, he had 3 podium finishes, 1 top 5 the rest of the way. So no doubt Ericsson wants to put together a more consistent season and be up front, have put it together a full year where he's competing for wins and podiums and things like that. As for the 28 team, I mean, they were in the mix for wins, especially in the season when Grosjean, or especially early in the season when Grosjean had his couple of poles, but they just couldn't come home first. So now they have a more seasoned driver like Ericsson, and I think they do end up in the winner's circle in 2024. So it's going to be a big year for Andretti Global, I think, and Marcus Ericsson being in the fold now, I think is going to be a lot of fun for them. So Marcus Ericsson is my driver to watch for who's driving for a new team.
Okay, so this isn't something that in general we're just looking forward to for the season, or a driver we're looking forward to
Well,
watching.
so we have a driver change we're looking for, and a race that we're looking forward to. But you can go wherever you want with it if you want.
Okay. I guess driver change, it's I'm not really you took the good one. Otherwise, it's been kind of ho hum on the as far as the driver changes go. So I'm going with a different route here. I'm going. This isn't the race that I'm most excited about, but this is one of the things I'm most looking forward to, which is the month of May in the Indy 500. Right now, there is a ton of buzz around this year's race. Ticket sales are closing in on, they're on pace with the 100th running sellout. There's the exciting storyline. Really, this is the storyline. This is what I'm very excited about is Kyle Larson running the double header. If there was ever a driver that was a one-off race, Indy 500 racer that has a potential to win, it is Kyle Larson. And I'm very excited to see him in an IndyCar. I think, Arrow McLaren has shown that they have good speed and good equipment for the 500. We've seen them up there contending with Pato O'Ward. We've seen them up there. So I think Kyle Larson, it is something that is very, very exciting to watch, especially because he's already been testing in an IndyCar and not at Indy. Recently, he was testing at Phoenix. So he's been out there and getting more comfortable with the car. And I hate to say it, everybody, but the more comfortable and the more time he has in an IndyCar to test it out and get a good feel for it, that is not good news for the rest of this field. Because this is a guy that can get behind the wheel of any kind of race car and be in contention to win that race. So I think the idea of potentially having one of the best race car drivers in the entire world in the field is very similar to when Fernando Alonso first made his appearance in the Indy 500. The buzz surrounding that, he was up there in contention until a late wreck put him out. But It's very, very similar. So I'm very excited to see how fans respond to the month of May this year. I think it's going to be very, very big, and I think it has a potential to really, really help flip the script for IndyCar and help take them to that next level and help bring in a new set of fan base, because Kyle Larson's got a ton of fans. Yeah, he doesn't win the most popular driver every year, but he has a ton of fans and a loyal following, and they'll be tuning in. So it's going to be really interesting to see just how this can affect and help improve IndyCar going forward.
Well, I mean, I talked about it in the NASCAR preview. If he can go into the month of May, riding high, having some momentum, and then he's going to be in good shape, and he's got to win this past weekend. So he's holding up his end of the bargain. That's going to only create even more buzz. So I do like that. Excuse me, I like that pick a lot for Kyle Larson. As far as the race that I'm looking forward to the most. Normally here I go with a for a new race on the schedule or my favorite track, but I'm going to get a little bit more technical here. For the last 5 races on the schedule are ovals, and Portland is the exception. So I'm going to go with the Grand Prix of Portland. I wish there was a stat on like who's better on ovals compared to road and street courses and vice versa. If you were better on ovals, a good Portland run can catapult you into the last 3 races of the year. If you're better on road courses, Portland can pad your numbers and give you a little bit of a boost going into that stretch run. So I think the Grand Prix of Portland is going to be an interesting race to watch as you go into the final couple of races.
The race I'm most looking forward to, I guess it's a toss-up for me. The doubleheader of the Milwaukee Mile is going to be fun. I don't have any of the drivers that are currently in the series. I don't think any of them have raced there.
Scott Dixon has, Will Power
Okay, well,
has,
yeah.
Joseph Newgarden has.
Okay,
A lot of
so
the older drivers have, yeah.
okay, so because of that, I'll go with my other toss-up, and that is Nashville, the Nashville Super Speedway. This one is going to be a blast. Ending the season on an oval, I'm super pumped for this one. Down in the city of Nashville. You know what? I may try to find my way down there. I really want to see this race. I think, yeah, the street course race through the city of Nashville, that's fun and everything, but let's let these guys just go all out, and not have to worry about uneven pavement, and let's just get out there and race. And so I think it's going to be great, especially if it is a close championship battle. And it could come all down to that final race in Nashville. And oh man, is that going to be a fun one.
Oh yeah, it is going to be a lot of fun. Well, speaking of crowning a champion, we're going to get into our predictions now for the 2024 IndyCar season. We're going to start here with Rookie of the Year. I'm going to go with Linus Lundqvist. Rookie of the Year will be decided between the 2 Ganassi drivers, in my opinion, and Lundqvist has the most success in Indy Lights, so I'm going to go Lundqvist here. I think Linus Lundqvist is your Rookie of the Year.
I think you know where I'm going.
Yes, I think so.
I'm going Tom Blomqvist here. I just think when it comes to, like I've said it before, I think when it comes to his experience, that I think that is the best thing for him in this race. I don't think he'll be the Indy 500 Rookie of the Year. I don't think that will happen. But overall, I think he'll come home with that, which is kind of weird for somebody that's such a seasoned vet. But I guess the same thing could be said when Jimmy Johnson was in contention for it or eligible for it,
right,
late in his career.
The championship dark horse. I'm going with Kyle Kirkwood. I know we've talked about it a bunch already. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think Andretti Global will be a super motivated team this year. Kirkwood had a breakout season a year ago. grabbing a couple of wins. He's a former Indy Lights champion. You had a recent Indy 500 champ into that team. I think that's that type of presence is going to help. And also, just think of the storyline. You brought it up a little bit earlier. Andretti Global, after losing out on a Formula One bid, has a driver win the IndyCar Series, the first non-Penske or Ganassi driver since 2012, since Ryan Hunter-Reay won for Andretti Autosport in 2012. That would be really cool. So I've got Kyle Kirkwood as my championship dark horse.
My championship dark horse is actually going to be Scott McLaughlin. I think he's going to have a sneaky good year. It's all of a sudden the season's gonna be coming to the end point, and you look at the standings, and Scott McLaughlin is just gonna be there, and it's like, whoa, okay, I think he's gonna win some races, and it's not gonna be anything super memorable because there's gonna be other moments that are gonna be more memorable throughout the season, but he's just going to be there. And I think that can help propel him into a championship run. So don't sleep on the number 3 Penske car.
Yeah, I think he can have you've convinced me. I think he can have a good year. As far as our championship prediction, surprisingly enough, picking a champion was not easy. Because Palou is coming off a dominant year in 2023. Has won 2 of the last 4 titles. And has won 2 of the last 3 titles in his 4 years in the sport. But say what you want about 2022, he wasn't really in the championship race that season. That was the year in between winning in 21 and 23. So can he put 2 championship quality seasons together back to back? Plus, IndyCar hasn't had a repeat champion, in years. Almost 20 years, and has only seen 2 repeat champions in the century. So it's going to be really tough. It feels like we throw Newgarden and Dixon out there every year, but it's been 3 seasons since either of them have won it. Ultimately, I did land on Joseph Newgarden because of how the schedule plays out. Newgarden was 3rd in points after Mid-Ohio last year. After Mid-Ohio this year, there are 8 races on ovals, 2 at Iowa, 2 at Milwaukee, Gateway, and then the season finale at Nashville. We talked about Newgarden's dominance on ovals. He was a win away. He was a win at Gateway from sweeping the ovals last season. He had won the last 5 IndyCar oval races. And I think Newgarden stays in the hunt and thrives on ovals to close out the season and capture title number 3. So I've got Joseph Newgarden winning the championship this year.
I'm right there with you. I'm going with Joseph Newgarden, but at the same time, it's really tough for me to not say Scott Dixon. Because I could see, I don't want to put anything out there in the world, but I could see Dixie winning a championship and then riding off into the sunset, one last time. But I just think it's going to be Newgarden, especially with the stretch at the end of the season with the ovals. I think that's the big difference maker. I mean, I feel like when it comes to the ovals, one of the people that can actually contend with him there is Scott Dixon. So that could make things really interesting. But what we have seen the past several years, I mean, there was a stretch there for a while where Newgarden was undefeated on ovals. And that's going to be a tough thing for other drivers to overcome. And the way the schedule sets up just puts him in a great position to close out the year and string off several wins.
Yeah, Dixon's a good choice too, also because of the oval. So I do like where your head's at there, and especially if he can. I mean, he might ride off to the sunset, especially if he can get another Indy 500 win this season. So
watch, he'll win the Indy 500 and the championship, and he'll be back again. Because I mean, like I said, he's ageless. He's an ageless wonder, and
right.
It's impressive.
So one more prediction to tackle, and that is who is going to win St. Pete this weekend. And I'm gonna double up. I'm gonna go Joseph Newgarden. Penske is the winningest team at St. Pete with 11 wins. They've also won 6 of the last 10. Also, you know how I like to play around with dates. The only other Grand Prix of St. Pete ran on March 10th was won by Joseph Newgarden. So Sunday, Newgarden ties Elio Castroneves for most wins at St. Pete. He gets his 3rd win there. And gets his season off to a good start.
Yeah. You know what? I am. This is a tough one, just without knowing. I mean, with some of the changes and everything. Um, um, um yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Marcus Ericsson here. Gets things off started strong again, and this time starts showing that Andretti is for real this year. Um, so yeah, give me Marcus Ericsson, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Joseph Newgarden. Um, really, it's this one's a fun one just because of that first turn.
Yeah.
He could take out half of the contenders for this race, and so yeah, but I'm going Marcus Ericsson. I think he'll have a strong race.
That's a solid pick. Well, that will do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Remember that you can like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go follow us on Twitter at 3C Media Sports. If you're listening to us on the podcast app, go over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, ring the bell over there, 3C Media. Also, go hit follow on the TikTok page, 3C Media as well. And then if you're watching us over on YouTube, go over to the podcast apps where you can hear us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can find me at Crash Course FM on Twitter. B. Scott, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
We're actually going to take a week off next week, but we will be back here in a couple of weeks. So see you guys all then. Have a good week. Enjoy the start of the IndyCar season.